let's start from such a warming up simple question. What do you prefer, agile or waterfall approach? Or maybe you don't want to pick a side and will share your personal experience. But let's start. Let's start from Kai-Iwe. So, hi Kai, tell us a few words about you, about your experience.
From my experience, I would say any modern data project couldn't survive without an agile approach. I think waterfall approach is outdated. I'm not saying that agile methodology like Scrum or whatever in its perfect definition is what we all need to do, but having this agile mindset in the background, I think that is very, very important. Being flexible to adapt to the needs of the projects, also have this multiple iterations, working on products, having this centric approach on the user itself. So all those things, I'm not saying that's all this bullshit bingo what I'm doing more or less, but I think what's in the idea is really having this agile mindset, and that's my true belief that there we definitely need to position in the agile environment. Maybe there's some attempts for the waterfall approach in maintenance things, but from my perspective, every data project we're dealing with is more or less in an agile way.
Okay, you vote for agile. Igor, what would you say?
I totally agree. Waterfall is just outdated, and it still has its place, just not in our industry. If you are thinking about Prince, Waterfall, a couple of other ideologies which are less flexible, when you're building a hospital or dealing with heavy industry, perhaps this is the way. You don't want to go agile and work with heavy machinery. But in our industry, agile is definitely the thing. You want to have people who are flexible in the way they're working. They are working across different parts of the project. And you want to be flexible at every single stage and keep iterating. So totally agree here with Kai.
Okay, Adewale, what do you think?
I totally agree with Kai and Igor as well. I think agile approach is what we should all embark on. Waterfall has actually outdated, like they said. The methodology of agile approach kind of makes sense, but because for me, the methodology is a client-facing, which means that the teams can share progress and encourage feedback into the process. So agile approach, definitely.
Okay, Parv?
Yeah, I've been into both places, to be very honest. Worked on a very large projects where they want to build a data warehouse. They want to build everything in one single go. And 3 years in the project, and then you see you are nowhere near what you're trying to achieve, because we don't have enough knowledge and the learning and all that stuff. But we decided to, okay, no, we want to do this. That's it, right? And instead of going with the agile approach, which a lot of my customers are doing right now, it's very well defined. Okay, this is what we wanted to do, because when it comes to especially
sorry, Parv, we hear you not so well.
Oh,
maybe.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I will put my headphone on. So let's get to the next topic, and in the meantime, I will bring my headphone.
Okay. But continue your thought. So we hear you, but silent.
Yeah, let me actually, hang on a second, change my audio setting a bit.
Whoa.
Can you hear me clear now?
Right. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So the Zoom audio setting was on the low side. Anyhow, sorry about that. So what I was trying to say is, like, in the past, like, companies went for like a, complete data warehouse development and trying to achieve everything in a single shot without and basically thinking about, okay, somebody asked for a report, let's go and work on that report and bring the data and then just start doing it. And eventually what happens is you end up going in this loop of doing things and never get to the end point. You are always missing something in there. But the most recent project what I'm doing is like all agile approach, completely agile approach. And the reason behind that is because it's very well focused, the quality of the data, the source of the data, from where you're collecting the data, what the end product look like. It's very well defined. It's achievable. It's measurable. It can be get tested. It can get approved. It can be get moved to the production and get used by the end user easily. So I think agile approach, in my opinion, is the right way to go instead of trying to do everything in one go. That I will 100% go with other friends on the panel here.
Okay, so everyone vote for Agile, but my experience for recent years demonstrated that some companies still work in waterfall approach more effectively than Agile. As Igor said, it's a heavy industry, manufacturers and the company which have, I would like to say, military corporate culture, and they are not effective in agile approach. They direct plan for the next 5 years, and they follow this plan. And really, we were in contrary directions until we developed this roadmap for the next 3 years and synchronized with their culture. And my recent experience, I was surprised, but it still works. And sometimes our clients or even team need long-term roadmap, which fits waterfall approach, not agile. Okay, so my next question about data-driven culture, because all we do, not just automated charts, we work with people finally, and our success depends on the application of our analytical tools and company data-driven culture. And what is your experience or any insights how to engage data-driven culture in the company? Let's go the same order. Kai-Iwe.
I mean, first I want to say, as you already introduced it, I mean, data-driven culture, that's a huge term, definitely.
Yeah.
Culture is always the toughest thing to change. That's really the underlying things you need to address here. What you need to be aware of is that it's also, we might be in a very technology-driven area. It's all about the people who are using this technology. So this is the first step. You need to have that awareness, I think. And then it's all about continuity and long-term. Otherwise, it's not possible really to engage others in this direction of having a data-driven culture.
Okay, maybe I'd rephrase my question, not the culture in general, but data-driven decisions. Because still I see the problems that companies have hundreds of dashboards, but make their decisions based not on this analytics. And how did you face this problem, and how did you manage it?
Yeah, we always try to manage it in like the thing, small thing, in small steps. Also, so that the approach of saying, okay, work small and then think big, more or less. So trying to work on small data products and really adding value to the whole organization. It's nothing about any data product just to produce it for the sake of the production. It's just, oh, how can we overall add value? And then I think this is more or less a central thing first. So some departments, some lighthouse projects, you need to start with that. And then step by step, you can move it into a more decentralized idea. But for me, the starting point is always very small and small data products, and really they need to add value to the organization, and then you could more or less go in this direction of data-driven decision making.
Okay, start from small products. Thank you. Igor, what's your experience?
It's interesting, Kai, you mentioned from the decentralized point of view, because there are two main stands, right? People are they arguing, let's do it decentralized or centralized way? Many companies would argue, let's do it from top to bottom, push the culture, and then it will happen. But yeah, you're laughing. Eventually, it costs a lot of money and people just leave because they have enough. I also think that it should be with small projects. It should come from the people itself. The best change that comes is if actual users try to reach out and learn more. So it's just step by step. There comes one project which can be improved, where we are moving people from Excel to a visualization tool. And those people, you just have to make them hungry for more. You have to empower them and step by step change it. And then the culture eventually shifts itself, because people who are driven with this new way of thinking are sitting next to people that are more old school, and the change just happens that way. The problem is that, yeah, it's very, very time consuming, it's expensive, and it's hard to account for it. There's not a single KPI that at the end of the year CEO is sitting like, we are 55% data driven. Yes, we did so well. Yeah, it's very complicated, but definitely step by step, agile. This is, again, the previous question, agile way of creating it. Let many small people, small groups surrounded by some kind of data, allow them to explore and give them the tools so they can drive the whole change from bottom to the top, not the other way around.
And if the perfect situation appears that also from top, they came of the idea, okay, it would be essential for the company to be data-driven, and then they more or less meet each other in the middle, then of course you reach more or less than the maximum, but never stop and say, okay, we need to wait until the top managers decide something for us. Everyone, I think, can achieve something into the direction of being data-driven.
Absolutely. I think that change is exactly like this. It's more towards humans and less towards bureaucracy, because bureaucratical, it's top-bottom forced, and it's just not happening in reality.
Yeah. Adewale, what do you think?
All right. So to me, I think it's more focused on empowerment and awareness as well in the organizations to drive the data culture. Many organizations are aware that they can actually create some insight report, or let me say insight analysis, but most of them doesn't understand how to gather data in the first place. So what is very important in an organization is even to do an awareness, let them be aware, introduce them to some technologies that can actually help them and then make their work faster. In fact, I've advised some of my clients to leverage on automations, right, to automate most of those things that they do. So staff, or let me say employee, don't need to focus on their time on what is not necessary. When there is a lot of automations that can help them to make decisions faster, they can leverage on automations to save time, and they can also enable some data accessibility, some people to play around with, so that data culture decision making can be easy.
Okay. Arv?
Yeah, first of all, it's not easy to change the data culture. I tell you what, I have real-time experience with all these things for sure. I've been in the industry for quite a long. I think with the modern technology, with the self-serve data storytelling or the visualization tools, it becomes a little bit easier to have the data culture in the companies, because the users are empowered. The one who really wants to do certain things, they have now toolings available around them to make things work before it becomes a really big, giant corporate product, right? Prior to this, in modern world BI tools, prior to this, you have to send the information to IT and wait for IT to develop it, some reports for you, and then it comes back. By the time the business changes and whatever changes, those numbers does not mean anything. And then you have another copy of the report, another copy of the report, and end of the day, you have 1,000 of reports just giving the same information in a totally different, grouping differently, different columns added and all this stuff. What I found is I'm working on a very large client here in Vancouver. I'm from Canada, if you guys don't know. one of very large client, they are in the real estate, and they have a two part of the department, which is domestic real estate and the international real estate. There is a vice president of the domestic real estate, really a person who wanted to have everything, take the decision based on the data, and involve his team. And it took us 3 years, to be very honest, because it was a complex area. It took us 3 years to get to the point where the reporting becomes really powerful for them. And that becomes really the key for that. And immediately when management starts seeing that, because the quality of why it took us 3 years? Because we wanted to make sure the quality of data is there, because during this process, they changed their ERP system. Now, all of a sudden, we have to move things around and all that stuff. But end of the day, what we have is their management now approach to the international real estate team. Hey, we would like to have the similar kind of report, what has been done by the domestic. Their portfolio is very big. The domestic, the international, very small. But still, sometimes I think the departmental based, the leadership, when they take the initiative, and because the technology is much easier, it's not like that self-serve should allow user to do everything by themselves. Otherwise, it will become go out of hand. But at least some department, when they take the initiative, then it goes to a centralized place. I think empowering the users, and they feel that changes can be done quickly as the business changes. They can really adopt those numbers, those reports, and make the decisions quickly, and they can count on their decision, count on the numbers. So it's always to start small, and then maybe you want to expand it to the other parts of the business. I think I have really success stories around going this method, like start small, do a small project, and then let the other users in the company use it. But only because you really need to empower your users, and because technology allows us to do this in today's world. I think that's very helpful.
Okay, thank you. And our timer is up, but I have a final question from Robert related to our choice between Agile and Waterfall. Clients need to control costs, so they want to have a clear estimate on costs. How do you address it with the Agile methodology? So, question to everyone who has answer.
I can try to answer that. Go ahead. Igor, you go ahead.
No, go first. It's all right.
All right. So I'm going to answer that question in a way like recently I'm working with, because everything what I'm answering is based on my experience in the real-time projects. Currently, I just finished a project with one of the company who were developing a product on Power BI on Microsoft Data Platform. And I was their Power BI consultant. And they, as I said, they had a very agile approach in their product, what they wanted to do, what kind of features they want to introduce and all that stuff. And so let's say if they want to introduce some sort of a feature in their reporting, in the data storytelling, and they will come and sit with me or with the other members and discuss, okay, what kind of timeline it is going to be. It was a very well planned, okay, what kind of timeline it will take and how much effort it will take and how much it will cost. And during this process, during this discussion, depending on the priority of what feature they want to introduce and how early they wanted to introduce based on the demand of that feature and the cost involved in that. Sometimes the feature look very small, but it is very expensive to implement it. The cost is very high. They went back on the drawing board and they said, okay, this feature is important, but I think it's very expensive at this stage of the product where we are. Maybe we need to work on the other, low-hanging fruits or the place which can be more important. So I think when you go with the agile approach and you know what you want to bring, you can really estimate the time required to achieve something, and then you can see what the priority is and how you then manage the cost around that. So they were very successful in doing that, and during these discussions they dropped a few of the features because they found it was super expensive to implement at this point in time. Even they were important, even during our discussion, some of the features came which they never thought of. I brought it up, or they came up in the discussion. They decided, okay, this might be useful for our customers. Let's try to bring that in our development, in our roadmap. So the answer to Robert is, it's very, very hard sometimes to estimate the cost from the day one. It is always, if you know these are the 15 or 20 things you wanted to do, and what is the timeline, you can really discuss how much it will cost. I don't see there is another way to find out. The cost can be a challenge to calculate at the start of the project, in my opinion.
Okay. Sorry, Igor, we don't have time to continue this discussion.